Adam Bede. Why one decision can change everything. What if one decision could change everything? That's the heart of Adam Bede. A story about love, judgment, and the quiet pain that comes from choices we cannot undo. George Eliot didn't write this novel to entertain us with grand adventures or sweeping romances. She wrote it to make us rethink how we look at each other. Adam Bede was published in 1859 under the pen name George Eliot. The real author was Mary Ann Evans, a woman who chose a male pseudonym so her work would be taken seriously in a literary world that rarely made space for women's voices. What she created wasn't just a novel, it was a quiet revolution in storytelling. At a time when fiction was dominated by Gothic mysteries, exaggerated heroes, and plot-heavy drama, Eliot did something radical. She focused on ordinary people, farmers, carpenters, young women with restless hearts. She called it realism, but it's more than that. It's emotional honesty. The reason this book still resonates today isn't because of its 19th century setting. It's because it feels human. And in a world that constantly asks us to perform, filter, and simplify ourselves, Adam Bede reminds us that real life is messy, complicated, and deeply worth paying attention to. Let's set the stage without giving away the emotional core of the story. Adam Bede is a young carpenter. He's hard-working, deeply principled, and quietly respected in his rural English community. He's in love with Hetty Sorrel, a beautiful but emotionally restless young woman who dreams of a life beyond the village boundaries. Hetty isn't evil. She's just young, vain, and trapped by the limited expectations placed on women in her time. Enter Arthur Donnithorne, the young squire of the local estate. He's charming, wealthy, and initially well-meaning, but his privilege blinds him to the consequences of his actions. When Arthur and Hetty's paths cross, what begins as a harmless flirtation spirals into a secret relationship that fractures trust, shatters reputations, and sets off a chain of events no one can control. A single mistake leads to tragedy. Lives are altered forever. Judgment falls fast. But Eliot isn't interested in punishment for its own sake. She's interested in what happens after the mistake. How do people survive regret? How do they face the people they've hurt? And how do they find a way forward when the past can't be undone? Let's break down what this novel is really trying to tell us. I've pulled out 5 takeaways that stay with you long after the last page. First, moral choices matter more than we admit. Eliot doesn't deal in grand villains or cartoonish heroes. Her characters make small, everyday decisions, ignoring a warning, chasing a feeling, staying silent when they should speak. But those quiet choices compound. One compromise leads to another. One lie requires a bigger one. The novel shows us that morality isn't tested in dramatic moments. It's tested in the unrecorded seconds when we decide what kind of person we want to be. Second, appearances are dangerously misleading. Hetty looks like innocence. Arthur looks like honor. Adam looks like unshakable strength. But Eliot peels back the surface to show us the fear, pride, and desperation underneath. We're so quick to judge people by how they present themselves, but everyone is carrying something they don't show. The book asks us to look twice before we decide who someone is. Third, sympathy is an active practice, not just a feeling. This is Eliot's biggest theme. She doesn't ask us to excuse bad behavior. She asks us to understand it. When characters fail, she doesn't point fingers. She shows the circumstances, the pressures, the human weakness that led them there. Real sympathy isn't agreeing with someone. It's refusing to reduce them to their worst moment. It's choosing to see the whole person. Fourth, love is not always enough to fix things. Adam's love for Hetty is genuine, steady, and deeply committed. But love alone can't erase pride. It can't overcome social pressure. It can't heal trauma caused by poor choices. Eliot is brutally honest about this. Good intentions don't automatically create good outcomes. Sometimes love arrives too late, or in the wrong form, or to someone who isn't ready to receive it. That doesn't make it worthless. It just makes it human. Fifth, real life is complex, and that's where the drama lives. We're trained to expect clean resolutions. The good win, the bad lose. Lessons are learned neatly. Adam Bede rejects that. Life in the novel doesn't wrap up perfectly. People carry scars. Forgiveness is slow. Healing isn't linear. But within that messiness is something beautiful. The dignity of ordinary people trying to do better. Eliot proves you don't need battles or palaces to tell a story that matters. You just need truth. So what's the deeper message here? Eliot wasn't writing a cautionary tale to scare us into perfection. She was writing a plea for emotional maturity. The novel constantly asks us to sit with discomfort, to hold judgment and compassion in the same hand. She believed that fiction's highest purpose wasn't to escape reality, but to deepen our relationship with it. Every character's suffering is meant to stretch our capacity for empathy. When we read Adam Bede, we aren't just watching a story unfold. We're being trained to look at our own world differently, to slow down, to listen, to recognize that behind every harsh word, every poor choice, there's a human being who is also afraid, also trying, also worthy of being understood. Eliot's realism isn't cold. It's deeply warm. It's the kind of storytelling that doesn't hand you easy answers, but instead hands you a mirror. And that's why, over 160 years later, this book still feels like a conversation we're still having with ourselves. Adam Bede reminds us that one decision can shape an entire life, and that understanding people is often more powerful than judging them. If you've ever carried regret or watched someone struggle with the weight of their choices, this book will feel like a quiet companion. If you want more honest, human-centered book breakdowns like this, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I read the classics so you don't have to navigate them alone. Now I want to hear from you. What book should I summarize next? Drop your request in the comments and I'll pick one for the next video. Thanks for reading, and I'll see you in the next one.